I'm Will Aubrey. It's time for another edition of the Improbability Engine, and joining me is my buddy Joe Darnell. And Joe, I think we both have the same moment of what this week, and it's really going to be our entire show's topic, and that is the college basketball scandal that has resulted to this point in 4 assistant coaches being arrested. And, the scandal has spread and will probably continue to spread. The University of Louisville has not been named, but if you look at the documents that have been released, it appears that U of L and one of its assistant coaches, at least, and perhaps 2 of its assistant coaches, were involved in the scheme that involved Adidas executives paying players to go to Adidas schools.
Right. And for me, the latest reports that we've got as of the time of this taping are that Louisville Athletic Director Tom Jurek and men's basketball coach Rick Pitino have both been fired from Louisville, leading me to call this day Red Wednesday. This is a very interesting point in the history of college basketball, and you can't be a college basketball fan without on some level acknowledging that this has been a long time coming. The idea that coaches no longer recruit high schools, they recruit AAU programs, and have for a few years now.
And one aspect of this, one aspect of the dirty nature of college basketball that's not at this point part of the investigation, but that we know anecdotally happens at the highest levels, is schools paying coaches of AAU programs to steer players to those schools.
Absolutely. And I think what you'll find, believe it or not, as this goes on, the Department of Justice and the FBI in particular, they follow a very set pattern. And it's always investigate, indict, flip, repeat. So with these guys being arrested, with charges going against Adidas executives, you're going to see the seizure of a lot more of Adidas documents, a lot more of hard scouring of their numbers, their marketing books. You might find some of that. And that's again going to trickle into different areas. Once you get that investigation, once you get the information, once you get the indictment, you flip a guy, all of a sudden now a new investigation begins, and you do the same thing over again. This is for all the talk right now of the University of Louisville, and I think it's hitting them the hardest because they were already on probation, although they were appealing, of a prostitution scandal that happened under an assistant coach previously in the Rick Pitino time frame. This is something that's going to hit not just the 4 schools that have had their assistant coaches arrested, those being Auburn, Southern California, Arizona, and Oklahoma State, but this is something that could possibly reach into Illinois. Brad Underwood, who just got hired from Oklahoma State, with the new NCAA rules that violations of assistants follow head coaches, and it follows head coaches no matter what job they go to. You could see Brad Underwood in trouble at Illinois. You could see San Diego State, which is where one of the assistants worked previously. South Carolina, Kansas State, Xavier, Arizona, all these schools have the possibility, and they're going through their stuff at this point of being in trouble.
Let's talk about the University of Louisville first.
Okay.
I grew up in Louisville. I'm a Louisville guy. I've always been proud of my hometown, the only city in the state of Kentucky. And in addition, I've always been proud of the University of Louisville and its basketball program. I was a huge fan of Denny Crum, and I remember back in the 70s when Louisville was one of the top programs in the country, as they still are today. I was at an FBLA convention at the University of Louisville, and a buddy of mine and I decided, let's just go talk to Denny Crum. And so we went to Crawford Gym, and there was a secretary there, and we told her what we wanted to do. She showed us right in, and he talked to us for a half hour, just a couple of high school kids.
Now, he didn't try to get you to come to Louisville, did he?
No.
Well, then there you go. You're free and clear.
But there was never a hint of scandal at
Right.
U of L in that period of time, and through Denny's career, up until into the 90s, was the first time that there was any hint of anything like that. This is the third time in Pitino's tenure that there has been a scandal. I'm embarrassed by it, and I'm glad that they've chosen to fire him. If that information is correct, he has embarrassed the university over and over again, and it's time for him to go. And we'll obviously still have to see how it all plays out. We don't know if there will be any NCAA penalties. We don't know really to what extent U of L was involved, and whether technically any rules were violated. Because if the player doesn't come to U of L, and if no money had actually changed hands, who knows? I mean, the fact that a payment was talked about, it's enough to sully the university's reputation and enough to fire Rick Pitino for, but we don't know at this point what the penalty is going to be.
Right, and that's going to be the biggest thing looking at the University of Louisville. They don't have a permanent president. They don't have a permanent athletic director, because the athletic director, by all accounts, has been fired. They don't have a men's basketball coach, because the men's basketball coach has been fired. How do you make a hire? Who would take that job?
Well, it's clearly a difficult situation.
Knowing that something is in the pipe for that.
The reason they don't have a president is, at least in part, due to Governor Bevin and the things that he's done as far as reorganizing the board at the University of Louisville. That led to President John Ramsey being dismissed.
Yeah.
And maybe there are rumors out there. There have been things written that he was involved in nefarious dealings, and who knows? I don't know about any of that. But it's a really bad time for the university. As for who would take the job, I think if you're looking at replacing Pitino for the upcoming season, which starts in about 6 weeks.
Right. Everything's done.
Yeah,
they've got a top 5 roster. They're a top 5 preseason team.
If you're looking at replacing him for the upcoming season, that's going to be tough. Nobody that has a current job is going to leave to come and take that position.
No
it would
chance.
Be insane.
Especially knowing that A, there's possible NCAA sanctions coming. B, you don't know when they're coming. C, you don't know what the athletic director who's going to be hired is going to do. And D, you don't even know what the president's going to do to hire an athletic director.
Right.
I mean, it would be moronic to jump into that game if you've already got a job. So that puts you on the list of guys who, in the Venn diagram, it's a very small overlap of guys who have been successful coaching at a high-level college and guys who are currently out of work.
Tom Crean.
Tom Crean. That's the name that's popped up on Twitter. That's the name that's been talked about all around. I personally, I have no problems with that if I'm a Louisville fan. He knows how to coach. He knows how to balance some guys out. Now, do the systems fit? Is it exactly the same? You know what? I don't think you can be that picky.
I agree. At this point, you can't afford to be that picky, and I don't know where you're going to find somebody who would take the job who's got better credentials than Tom Crean. He's taken a team to the Final Four.
Right.
It's clear he knows what he's doing, and he has connections to U of L. In that, when he was at Indiana, he brought Denny Crum in to help him design his offense.
Right.
And so, clearly, I think that would be a hire that most U of L fans would applaud. If you think you're going to go out and get a top-notch coach at this point in time, who has a job right now, then you're just fooling yourself. The only other
No
option,
smart coach would do that.
right? The only other option that I see would be to take either if there's some assistant on the staff that you know is clean, make him the interim coach. That's really dicey though. Or to take somebody like Scott Davenport, who's the head coach at Bellarmine, who's used to be an assistant at U of L, somebody like that, to take the job for 1 year, and then you go out and you try to hire somebody.
Well, if you're Scott Davenport, do you take that job? I mean, Bellarmine. Now, here's why I ask that. For those of you who are not,
his love for the university might.
He does
cause
love
him
the
to take
university, and that would be the reason why he'd answer the phone call. I think, to be honest with you, he'd at least hear it out, because I'm here to tell you, Bellarmine is one of the best jobs at that level that you can get. I mean, it is a top-class program. It is a great school. They care about athletics. They do it the right way, and they win a ton of games. Now,
And they have a former Callaway County Laker,
absolutely, because they know where the talent is found.
Skylar Hunter.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So you look at that. Now that's an outside-the-box thought, but that could work. Especially if if Davenport's trying to make that leap to D1 head coach. My God, there are easier ways to do it, but you're going in, and all you need to do is manage some egos and X's and O's.
And he's a Louisville guy.
He already knows the playbook.
And Louisville fans would probably give him 2 or 3 years to get things under control.
Louisville fans, I think, need to just go sit down and time out for a while. They don't get to talk about this for a while because this is the program that they've got. There's nobody who's going to come in during sanctions, during investigations, during arrests. If you're cleaning house, nobody is going to come in now who's going to lead you to the promised land. You need to stop thinking about national championships, start thinking about reestablishing the program on clean footing, and go from there, because that's the most dangerous thing you can do. That's the SMU mentality. Yeah, we're going to change coaches, but by God, we need to win. So let's just figure out a way to keep winning.
Right.
And that's the wrong thing to do at this point.
Agreed.
Because that's where you start doing things that are really shaky.
You need to bring in somebody whose integrity is above question.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
let's broaden the discussion a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it could become much bigger. Much bigger. As big as it is, it could become much bigger.
Absolutely.
The prosecuting attorney
Yeah.
at the press conference yesterday said to other coaches and people throughout the country involved in college basketball, any of you who are out there who are involved in something like this, call us. And he gave the telephone number, and he said, believe me, you would rather call us than have us call you.
Right.
And the pattern that the Justice Department follows is they get people to flip to turn in other people.
Yep.
If the Adidas guys flip, and why wouldn't they, to get a reduced sentence?
Absolutely.
If the Adidas guys flip,
or the agents flip, then suddenly a bunch of other universities become involved, because anybody who thinks this is just about the schools mentioned is crazy. Absolutely. And it's not just about Adidas.
Right.
This is not an Adidas thing, because I'm here to tell you, I would bet all the money in my wallet, were it legal and right to do so, I would bet that Nike, Under Armour, insert whatever apparel company you find, they have something similar like this at their highest levels.
Absolutely.
Because it's in their business to do so. The hiring of spokespeople for your shoes is a $1 billion business. It's a $1 billion, multi-billion dollar business in reality. And it started with Michael Jordan, but it's happened since then. It has its reach everywhere. And so for all the Kentucky fans who are sitting back and laughing because U of L got caught in another scandal or something of that nature, don't laugh. Because you don't know what's going on. And I'm not talking specifically about John Calipari. I'm not talking specifically about, one coach or another coach or any coach that's ever been at UK. I'm not saying that specifically. But the fact of the matter is you just don't know.
That's right.
And until you do know, you can laugh later.
And
watch out for Schadenfreude. That's not how you need to do that right now.
And we were talking earlier off the air about Western Kentucky and how this situation may affect them.
Well, it certainly brings up more skepticism. One of the things that got lost, you have the greatest recruiting class, arguably, in modern Western Kentucky basketball history. They just canceled their contract with Russell Athletic this year to sign up with Nike. They had 5 years left on that Russell Athletic contract. I'm not saying that there's any smoke there, but because we're looking at this with these new eyes of saying, oh yeah, follow the money from the big companies through the programs and into their recruiting. The best recruiting year that Western Kentucky's had, I'm not saying some of that's not Rick Stansberry. Rick Stansberry's a hell of a recruiter. He's done it everywhere he's gone.
But they got a 5-star recruit and a 4-star recruit, the only 5 and 4-star recruits they've ever signed.
Well, and they did it the year they signed with Nike. You know what I mean? That's at least interesting.
Now could it be that Mitchell Robinson sat there and said, I really want to wear Nike shoes and Nike clothes. I guess that's possible.
It's possible.
But I doubt it.
I doubt it. No, you get what's funny about that, did you bring that up? The Russell deal, they could have worn whatever shoes they wanted because Russell doesn't make the shoes. So that was the exclusion in the Russell contract from what I've read in my stuff, was that Western Kentucky's apparel would all be made by Russell Athletic. Their shoes could be whatever because they didn't have any competition there. So, no, it makes you become far more skeptical of these programs that are changing their apparel deals. It's not just money for the university. Now we're seeing that these apparel deals might also be money to recruits, that they then go and recruit from AAU teams that have ties to a certain shoe company. That might be how you do it, because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get AAU coaches to put them onto programs that follow the same shoe company deals, and then when they graduated and went to the pros, they would sign shoe deals with that same company.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's limited to college basketball, or do you think that it could bleed over into college football?
I think it's a little bit different with college football. There's less value in college football's shoe glove naming rights. I think there's a lot of things at hand that go into that. Football players are a little bit less marketable, in my opinion, than basketball players. They have a shorter career, generally speaking. They have less visibility.
Because there's so many players on a team.
There's so many players on a team. They only play so many games a year. They wear helmets. I mean, I know that seems kind of small after you've seen Drew Brees or Brett Favre in a Wrangler commercial or whatever. But I think that there's slightly less impetus to do that. Basketball is global. Basketball has value the world over. And I mean in a big, big, big way. You're watching these apparel companies. You can look no further than And One. And One has captured a certain segment of the apparel industry that's not so much in the U.S., but in China and in areas like that where the game is growing. And they do that because they see their global share growing and becoming something more valuable. So football is probably not. I think there is some value in it, but I don't think that it's quite as cut and dry. There's only 5 guys on a basketball court for a team. You know what I mean? There's 10 guys for both teams. That's a lot of visibility, and you see those guys, they play 30 some odd games, and then they go to the pros and they play, another 80 games. There's a lot of visibility there that you don't go with football. I don't know if it's going to extend that way, but this is a pardon the term. This is a come to Jesus moment for NCAA, the NCAA tournament, for the NCAA as an organization, for college teams on that top level. We've wondered how they get all these guys to go there, and now we know.
Now,
yeah,
let's not forget, because nobody talks about it, the North Carolina situation is still hanging out there. And they were involved in academic fraud, where they set up phony classes and let athletes as well as other students take those classes.
Yeah.
And, get A's because everybody got an A.
Yeah.
That's as bad, if not worse, than this. And so far, nothing has been done to North Carolina.
Honestly, I think it is far worse than any recruiting scandal that could ever be, because it strikes at the fundamental basis for
what a university
is. If you're chipping away at the foundation of the very existence of the entire university, the basketball program's success or lack of success is moot. I mean, that's the University of Phoenix doesn't have a basketball team. You know what I mean? If you start, Trump University didn't have a basketball team. This is something that you have to make sure is right. This is job one, is to make sure your university is in fact a university. Everything comes off of that. And so the fact that you haven't heard anything about the North Carolina scandal, I think is pretty telling. I think it has contributed in a small way, because it is so recent, to the Wild West outlook that all these programs have had. I think that if you're looking to return integrity to this system, it needs to be seriously handled, and it needs to be seriously handled in a very quick fashion. And the issue at hand right now is that you've dealt in half measures if you're the NCAA for decades now. The idea that, oh God, we took SMU from a national championship school and now they're, what are they, Conference USA? I mean, they don't have a program anymore. So be it. So be it. If you cannot run a program within the rules, you probably shouldn't have a program. And if that means that you start doling out the death penalty quickly and do so in a way that is devastating, you need to do that, because that's how you get the boosters to take it seriously. That's how you get the schools to take it seriously. That's how you get the coaches to take it seriously. At this point, there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing there. There's no rod. You got a lot of carrots, but no rod. And there's no way that you can kind of keep something as large and as money generating clean without serious oversight. Otherwise, we call it what it is, and we strip it away from the educational system and we turn it into minor league basketball, and you can make money with it, and everybody gets paid and nobody goes to class, and all that stuff's optional.
Anything else?
This is going to be one of the biggest scandals to ever hit college athletics, or athletics in general. I think this has a chance to be as big as the 1919 Black Sox scandal, the 1950s and the point shaving scandal in the NCAA. Bigger than anything that I've ever seen in my lifetime. This is as big as it gets. And nobody's going to be immune from the effects of it. Even the clean programs will be affected by what happens in the next 5 years. And so while everybody's giggling and laughing and, yucking it up because, our rival got in trouble, don't ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
And I would mention this. As a Louisville fan, I'm embarrassed, and as a Kentuckian, I'm embarrassed because if Louisville gets the death penalty, the state will now have had two teams, it's two major universities, get the death penalty. Louisville would be the second. Kentucky got it back in the 50s for point shaving and paying players.
Yep.
So it's shameful. Anyway, that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.